Hello everyone, welcome to my latest video series. In this series we will be playing Diablo 2 with the Project Diablo 2 mod. This mod provides changes to some of the skill trees and some other game mechanics, and it also adds some quality of life features. If you're interested in checking it out, there's a link in this video's description. Now, in this video series we will play a challenge mode that I am calling the Project Diablo 2 Hardcore One Tree Challenge. We're going to see how far we can get in the game with each skill tree. That means only using and putting points into skills in one single skill tree. So we'll miss out on some of the synergies and some other technical issues that we'll encounter with not having access to some of the other skills. In some cases it'll be really bad, in some cases not so much. But in this first video, we're going to talk about some of the additional rules on the challenge and also predict how far we might get with each specific class and their skill tree. So just having access to one tree isn't that hard. We could probably get through it without too much trouble, even on hardcore. We just might have to take it slow and skip some encounters. But that doesn't sound very fun, so we're adding some more rules onto that. For starters, we're going to be playing as if there were 8 players in the game. That means the enemies will have more health, do more damage. There's a little bit of a balance though. We will be getting more experience per kill. We'll also have a better chance of finding loot. But the very beginning of the game will be especially deadly until we start getting some gear and some skills. Another big rule is no town. So once we leave the town, we are not coming back to it unless we are required to for progression to the next act of the game. Optional quests will not be a factor. Things like rescuing Deckard Cain in Act 1, we won't be able to complete that because we won't go back to town to turn in the quest. So there will be no point in doing that unless we wanted to go to Tristram for experience or some other reason. So not having town also means that we won't have a mercenary, we won't be able to respec, we won't have access to storage, we won't have access to vendors, and we won't have access to quest rewards unless we happen to complete a quest outside and it automatically gives us a reward, which I don't recall if any of them do that. That also means that we won't be able to escape from bad situations with a waypoint or a town portal. We won't escape using save and quit, although we can pause the game, even if it's just to delay the inevitable death of our character, or if I just have to step away for a minute. Another important rule is that we will have to fight all champion groups that we encounter. So that means if we get unlucky and run into some cold enchanted archer group, we have to either defeat it or die trying. And even if we get in a bad situation, we won't be able to get out of it. So that should add a little bit more excitement instead of just watching a slow slog through all the acts with a terrible build. But now we will look at each of the classes and their skill trees and make some predictions as far as how far we expect to get in the game with each specific combination here. So starting with the Amazon, if we look at the skill trees, we have bow and crossbow skills, passive and magic skills, and javelin and spear skills. A lot of people have made builds almost entirely using javelin or entirely using bow, so these are not going to be very problematic. We'll just miss out on having some of these passive bonuses. So I'd expect that we could get pretty far with both javelin and bow trees. With the passive and magic skills, it's going to be a bit more challenging. there aren't really any, well, there aren't any active skills to use. We'll have a lot of passive bonuses. We'll be able to use any weapons that we find. If we happen to find a good weapon early on, maybe we can get through Act 1. I don't think we'll be able to beat Duriel. But if somehow we were able to get to level 30 and summon this Valkyrie, then we might have a chance. But I don't see us getting there. So if we now look at our tier list here, what I did is I updated the standard tiers to be Act 1 through Act 5 plus. We have our different skill trees down here. The passive and magic skills, I don't expect to get past Act 1. Javelin, we can probably get pretty far as long as we don't have an unfortunate accident through hardcore, and same thing with bow. I think those are all pretty solid skill trees. All the skills synergize well with each other, and we don't really need these passive skills. Now we'll look at the next class. We'll exit here, and we'll select the assassin. And if we look at these skill trees, martial arts, in Project Diablo 2 it's a little more streamlined, so that'll be a lot easier to use than before, and they all synergize well with each other. I think this could get pretty far. Shadow disciplines are also reworked a bit. Things like Mind Blast is like an AoE stun with a lot of synergies within here. I think this could go pretty far as well, and traps has always been a solid skill tree in Diablo 2. So I don't think we'll have too much trouble with these different trees. If we go back to our tier list, here we go. I think, Diablo might give us some trouble. This is for the Shadow disciplines. We have traps. Traps, I think, is pretty solid. That might get us all the way through Act 5. And then the martial arts, I think that might get us through Act 1, but I don't think we're going to beat Duriel with that unless we get lucky with some good gear. So we'll take another look at our next class. We'll look at the Necromancer next. Curses, gonna be terrible. I'll just leave it at that. Poison and bone spells, always a solid choice. I did a hardcore run and died in Act 5 due to some unfortunate positioning. But we might not go with Bone Spear for that. I think we'll check out this improved poison line here and see how that goes for us. And summoning spells, always a solid choice. They just struggle a little bit on bosses. Especially when there isn't a ready supply of bodies to raise skeletons from. But we will see how that goes. And if we go back to our tier list, we'll place these in my prediction. Oops, wrong slide there. So curses, garbage. We're not going to get through Act 1 unless we get insanely lucky. Summoning, I think it's a good choice, but on hardcore we might not even get past Duriel. We might get unlucky there. That's going to be my prediction. I hope I'm wrong because I like summoning. And then our poison and bone skills, I think they're okay, but I don't know if we'll get past Diablo. Mephisto's okay. Bale, we'll leave it there. I don't know if they'll be as solid. Next, we will Go back to the game. And who's our next class to look at? Barbarian. War Cries is going to be interesting. We'll have to take a look and see when we get to it. I don't think it'll be terrible, but I don't think it'll be especially good. They do have this War Cry that does AoE damage and stuns around them, which might be interesting, but I don't think that'll carry us through any bosses. But you can see it gets synergies from almost everything in here. So we'll really won't know till we play it. Combat masteries, very straightforward, just passive bonuses. As long as we get a good weapon, we'll probably get pretty far, but we don't know what we're going to end up with. Combat skills, always pretty solid. I'm not sure exactly what I'll pick. If we're going to go down to the Berserk route, or maybe we'll do a throwing barbarian. So these could really all go any way here. Let me think about this on our tier list. Passives really depend on if we get lucky with a weapon. Maybe Act 2. I think we'll get a little further. Maybe we'll get overwhelmed by the flares in Act 3. For the combat skills, if we go throw, it might give us some advantages. I think we can get pretty far, but I don't know that we'll get all the way through. And shouts, I think we might be able to get through Act 1, but I don't see us getting past Duriel with just shouts. We're not going to shout him down. Something else I need to remember is with our rules, once we get in that little room with Duriel, we can't get out of it because we can't teleport back to town. So that might cause some of these skill trees to have some issues here. Okay, back to the game. We'll take a look at the next class. The Paladin. I think the Paladin's going to have our best and our worst skills here. Combat skills, amazing. It'll be a little sad not having auras unless we get lucky with some kind of item that gives us an aura. But there's a lot of good, strong skills here and a lot of synergies. Offensive auras, I think this will be moderate, but it's going to struggle, I think, with some bosses. We'll probably go with one of these elemental auras to do AoE damage and add damage to our weapon attacks. But a lot of their synergies are coming from the defensive auras, like resist fire, salvation. So we won't be able to get as strong as we would normally get if we had access to all of the skills. And defensive auras, I think, is going to be the worst performing out of all of the skill trees. We won't even be able to get anything interesting until later on, and I don't know that we'll even get past Act 1 with just access to prayer. That's just going to drain our mana. And Defiance, just adding some defense bonus. Maybe it'll be harder to kill, but we're not going to be dishing out any damage. But we'll see how it goes. We'll get these in the tier list. So defensive, I don't think we're getting past Act 1. Combat, or not combat, there's combat. I think that'll carry us very far. And offensive, as long as we have stamina potions, we can probably run around Duriel enough to bring him down. It'll take some time, but we might, I'm confident we're going to get pretty far, but I don't think we'll get through the entirety of the game. So what do we have left? We'll have sorceress and we'll have druid. If we hop back to the game, sorceress, all three of these very solid. Lightning has an advantage of being the only one that has a teleport. So on hardcore, teleport's going to be very important so we can get out of sticky situations. But people always play with one skill tree in the sorceress. You know, they're not normally mixing fire and lightning or cold and fire. They're usually going all in because they synergize just within the skill tree. So these, I think, are all going to get pretty far. It's really going to be dependent on if we have an unlucky start. So I'm not even going to put those in the chart right now. We'll just take a look at the druid and take care of all of them at once. The druid, I think, is going to have another very strong set of trees. Summoning, very strong. We'll have strong and tanky wolves and bears. We'll also have the spirits that can buff those summons. And we're not limited to having to raise skeletons like the necromancer. So as long as we have mana, we can keep raising our summons. Shape-shifting, very strong. I'm not sure if we'll go werewolf or werebear. Werebear is very tanky. Werewolf has a lot of speed. And elemental, again, very strong. And this is even better than the sorceress, I think, because you have access to 2 different types. You have your cold and you have your fire. So if we run into anything that is immune or resistant to one, we should be able to get them with the other. I'm actually looking forward to the druid. They're usually a lot of fun. So we'll go back to our tier list and place these last skill trees on here. We'll put lightning, sorceress at the top. Fire, pretty strong, but not as strong. And cold, same thing. Elemental druid, I think it can go the distance. Same with summoning. And we might struggle with the shape-shifting. I'm not sure about Duriel. That's going to be one of the big filters of these skill trees, is can we get past Duriel? All the melee characters will be at a disadvantage, and all the ranged will have a bit of an advantage on that. But we'll have to wait and see. So make sure that if you disagree, or even if you agree with some of these placements, let me know in the comments. If you're looking forward to these videos, feel free to subscribe. But we will do one more thing before we end this video. In order to decide what we will be playing first, we will spin for it. So I put together a picker wheel. We have all of the different skill trees along here. So we will spin this, and you guys can look forward to that next video, which will be combat skills, the paladin. I'm actually excited. I think this one will go really well. Hopefully we don't screw up in the first act. So you can look forward to that video in the coming days, and I will see you guys there. Thanks for watching.